Mayor Matt Girding call the May 5th, 2025 City Council meeting for the City of Somersworth to order. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Pepin.
Yep.
Vincent.
Here.
Gibson.
Here.
Parity Catanzaro. Here. Michaud.
Excused.
Witham.
Here.
Goodwin.
Here.
Cameron.
Here.
Barry.
Here.
All right, Councilor Witham will lead the council in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the recognition of our Indigenous people, our Native ancestral Americans. This meeting is taking place on Indokina, which is the unceded traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land, waterways, living beings, and the Alnabuk, the people who have stewarded Indokina throughout the generations. Item 4 on the agenda are any scheduled public hearings. We have one this evening on Ordinance 22-25, which is a supplemental appropriation for the reconstruction of a culvert on Rocky Hill Road. Is there anyone here this evening looking to speak towards Ordinance 22-25? Anyone wishing to speak towards it? All right, with that, I will close the public hearing on Ordinance 22-25. Brings us to item 5, which is comments by visitors. Somersworth City Council and Mayor's Office welcome all visitors and encourage you to voice your opinions and views at council meetings. In accordance with Council Rule 7-C, a time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the council wishes to suspend the rules. Speaker shall not enter into a debate with any persons, the mayor, council members, city manager, or department heads. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Thank you. If you could state your name and ward in which you live, please.
Sure. Eddie Lavasser, Ward 5. Thank you for having me, Council and Mayor. Sorry for my attire. Came from work. I'm at Soulshine Tie-Dye. Check us out. We just opened up our new spot, bigger production space. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to speak on a few things, some things that are on the agenda. I guess I'll cover that first. There's on the table is... Sorry, I had it and then I lost it. Some legislation about accessory dwelling units. There we go. Ordinance 1925. Happy to see that this is before the board. I'm happy to see that it was, I guess, enacted maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I think Councilor Witham brought it forward. I had some concerns initially when it required that it be attached. I see that this kind of amends it and modifies it to allow for detached units. They call them granny flats, they call them ADUs. There's some cool companies that make prefab ones. There's one called Boxable. I think this just allows for increased housing stock and continues for us to be a championship of housing on the Seacoast. As someone who's been displaced by their housing options because of increased rents, it's something that's very near to my heart. So I'd ask that you consider and then maybe even take it a step further. Some municipalities have like pre-approved schematics for these plans. So maybe that's something that we can look to as a city. The other thing that I wanted to talk on is I'm glad to see that there was recently, I think it was this past weekend, the parking study that was going on. I know that was something that we've kind of toggled with back and forth over the years. I think that's good progress. I'd like to suggest that we take that even further and look at forming some sort of parking commission so that we can oversee the maintenance, the use, the redesign of parking. I know maybe back in, was it 2018 or so, when we did the charrette, there was some suggestions on like the parking size. And I think it goes through to be said that some of the stalls, even on the main drag here, is it High Street, some of them are extra large. We can have some compact car sizes and kind of work on what's already working. Kind of in tandem with that, I'm happy to see the progress with the complete street work that was done over here. Happy to see when that'll be fully completed. And then continued with that is the sidewalk work that's been done. I'm glad that we did that, the study to map and figure out which ones need worked out. I think on top of that goes into some of the amenities. As someone that's been a resident of downtown and an active participant in the downtown economy over the past decade, we need to consider the sort of utilities that are used, like trashes and more specifically for me, bus stops. So at our new shop at the corner of High and West High Street, just the other day, I was bringing in some merchandise, and I saw someone. They had their own chair. They had to bring their own chair just to sit at the parking stop, the bus stop. And I think when I think of a city, I think of the amenities that they have for their folks, and shelters for people that are waiting for the bus or one of those things. I'd love to see if we can add maybe just a handful more, even if some businesses or the chamber can sponsor. It's an opportunity for advertisement. And yeah, that's it. I congratulate you on your continued success. I'm happy to see that there's been some development projects. I guess lastly on that, with the sale and transfer of the police station, I see that that's kind of really been stalled recently. I know that it was sold free and clear, and I guess the only kind of mechanisms that we might have as a city to kind of put leverage is with the 79E that was approved for the tax abatement. So I'd ask that the city just look at that and maybe just get a status update and see if that needs to be revoked or not, or reworked. Thank you kindly, and have a blessed day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment this evening? Anybody else? All right, that will move us on. We'll go on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the approval of the consent calendar. The chair will obtain a motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes the minutes of the city council meeting held on April 21st, 2025. Do I have a motion? Yes, Councilor Cameron.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Councilor Cameron makes a motion to approve the minutes, seconded by, anyone want a second? Thank you, Councilor Vincent. Question for the council is on the adoption of the consent calendar. If you're in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Consent calendar is adopted. Brings us to item 7, which is comments by city councilors. Are there any comments by councilors this evening? Councilor Witham.
Your Honor, I don't know if it would be appropriate or not, but former mayor of the city, John Meserve, passed away a couple of weeks ago. Would it be appropriate to stand and have a moment of silence
It would.
in reflection of
I
his
think
work
that's a
here?
great idea. Thank you. If people in council chambers would please stand, we'll have a brief moment of silence. All right. Thank you very much. Great suggestion. You're still recognized, Councilor Witham.
That's all I have for initial comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments by councilors? Yes, Councilor Goodwin.
I just wanted to take a moment to speak to the community member, Ed Lavasser, who came out and mentioned the Somersworth Police Station, old Somersworth Police Station, now a privately owned development project. I had a similar thought about probably 2 weeks ago, and emailed the city manager for a status update. I believe Ed is correct in that the site was sold free and clear, so there were no clawback provisions or performance guarantees that the city had selling to that entity. I would also note that that entity has no past history of building anything, so I don't really know why they were selected. But they are moving forward slowly, so the city did reach out to sort of check in on the status, and because they are not an experienced developer, and there are, to be fair, sort of extraordinary times in the construction industry with high construction costs and tariffs and procurement issues and all that stuff. It's not the easiest time to learn, but they're muddling through at the moment, so I don't think there's any immediate action required there, though it is something that I think I and others should keep an eye on to make sure that performance continues.
Great, thank you. Comments by councilors? No one else has a first. I'll go back to Councilor Witham. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just apologies. I meant to mention it and forgot. Councilor Goodwin is correct in what he states, and just anecdotally, driving by late last week, there was a truckload of windows being delivered, so that at least showed some progress there. So I guess that's positive news.
Steps in the right direction. All right, other comments by councilors? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, which is communications. Tonight we have one letter. It's a letter of resignation from Tammy Francor Snedden as Ward 1 Selectman. City Clerk, will you please read the letter?
Dear Mayor Girding and the Somersworth City Council, I'm writing to tender my resignation as a selectman in Ward 1. On April 21st, 2025, I was appointed to the position of Supervisor of the Checklist in Ward 1, effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as selectman. I am looking forward to my new role as Supervisor of the Checklist in Ward 1. Sincerely, Tammy Francoeur-Sneddon.
Thank you. Brings us to item 9, which is presentations of positions and disposal thereof by reference or otherwise. We have none. Item 10 is the mayor's report. Tonight, all I have for you is a proclamation. A proclamation declaring May 18th through May 24th of this year National Public Works Week. So I will read the proclamation and present it to our Public Works Director. So whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, quality of life, and well-being of the people of Somersworth. And whereas this year's National Public Works theme is People, Purpose, Presence, and highlights 3 cornerstone ideals that motivate public works professionals to serve in their communities every day. Meeting the needs of people is what gives public works its sense of purpose. Public works services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's public infrastructure that is essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the great city of Somersworth to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs, and be it now resolved that I, Matt Girding, Mayor of the City of Somersworth, do hereby designate the week May 18th to May 24th, 2025 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join the representatives of the American Public Works Association in paying tribute to our public work professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you. Public Works Director, if you could meet me.
Look over this way for a picture and put on your hard hats.
All right. And this concludes my mayor's report. Next on the agenda is item 11, which is reports of standing committees. First up, we have the Finance Committee, Chairman Witham.
No report, but Finance will be meeting 5 p.m. tomorrow here in the Executive Council room.
Thank you. Next up, we have Government Operations Committee. Since Chairman Mishu is out, our Vice Chair is Councilor Gibson. Do we have any report? Thank you. Next is Economic Development Committee, Chairman Goodwin.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Economic Development Committee met at 6 p.m. ahead of tonight's council meeting. We had one substantive agenda item, which was a discussion around the redevelopment of the Somersworth Plaza property, both the city-owned portion and the privately owned condos, or actually not condos, they're privately owned lots. There was no action item necessarily taken away from the meeting. We just wanted to have the conversation, and we will be regrouping to see if there is a recommendation that the committee wants to make to council as to next steps. But I would say that there was a general interest in trying to reestablish momentum around action on the site, and stay tuned for what that may look like.
Great. Thank you very much. Next is Public Safety Committee, Chairman Pepin.
Yes, I do have a report. We had a meeting here in the City Council chambers at 5:30. I'm going to leave the police department, well, first on the list, but I'm going to leave them for last because I'd like to have a motion to have the police chief come up and talk and suspend the rules on a certain thing. One thing he did discuss, though, prior to this is that Bravo is at the end of his career as far as a police dog. So we'll be either looking in the future of trying to replace it or just notifying the city council that Bravo is basically at the end of his career and he'll be retiring very shortly. Officer Kelly is going to possibly at the next school season start off as a school resource officer at the high school, or at the school department, where we lost officers out, and he's moved on to Portsmouth. So thank her for being there. Fire department gave a report. Basically, our ladder truck, truck 1, is out of service, has hydraulic problems. The chief has presented us with some quotes of having it repaired. There was 2 different options. One option was with new parts replacing what is leaking is hydraulic leaks on the hydraulic cylinders is basically the main problem. One quote was for replacing that. The second quote was using some of the parts that they think they could salvage and use new parts that needed to be replaced and put in it. There was a discussion of different warranties. And then there was a third thing that basically that they would come up and get the truck. There was a price for that and return the truck after it's repaired. There was a discussion on that. That will be going to the Finance Committee, so I'm not going to put any figures out there right now, so that'll be going, so that's that on that. EMS, report from the general manager over there. The month of March, they had 152 calls. 111 were transported. The response time was 7.5. And in the month of April, they had 151 calls. 91 were transported, and the response time was 4.17%. So the response is under 5 minutes on the medical calls, which is great. If we could, I'd just like to have a motion to suspend the rules to have the police chief. We have it was a COSSAP grant, and it's got something to do with community police position, and it's got a lot to do with drugs and stuff like that, and abuse and everything else. So there was a lot of questions, and I felt that the city council should have a chance to ask the chief some questions or whatever. So with your permission to
Yeah, I think without objection from the council, that's fine with me. So, yeah, thank you, Chief.
You need a motion to suspend the rules?
No, if everyone's
No? Okay,
yeah,
great.
within okay with it, then we're good.
Turn it on this time.
Yeah, as long as
Good evening. For those in the community that don't know me, I'm John Sunderland, the Chief of Police for Somersworth. A little background here. In 2019, the city was awarded a COPS grant for a community policing officer. That grant expired in 2022. We filled that position until Officer South left us. In 2022, the city applied for it and was granted a COSAP grant. Now, COSAP stands for Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Abuse Site-Based Program. So this is a grant to target the substance use epidemic that we've been facing. Statistically, in Somersworth, I only drew back a 5-year picture here, so bear with me, but in the period of January 1st to April 30th of each year, in 21, we had 10 non-fatal overdoses and 1 fatal. In 22, 41 non-fatal and 2 fatal. In 23, 16 non-fatal, 1 fatal. In 24, 18 non-fatal and 2 fatal. And already this year, we're at 31 non-fatal and 1 fatal. So what I come to you with is 2 things. The COSAP grant was originally written to train the police department and then employ an officer on overtime to go out and try to interact with those suffering from substance use disorder. It was to train them and send them out for 8 hours a week on overtime. And then the second phase would have been for 12 hours a week on overtime. We can't address this as a part-time issue. So what I'm coming to you with today is a suggestion and a recommendation and a request that we take that community-oriented policing position that the city got in 2019 and reallocate that position to what's called PET, or Prevention, Enforcement, and Treatment. I can't bring you a social worker, but this is the closest I could do in employing a sworn police officer that's going to go out and try to work with those suffering from substance use and connect them with resources and open the doors to resources that we don't have or don't know about that may be available in a neighboring community or even region. So we're trying to bridge some gaps to open some doors and bring real change with respect to the drug epidemic that we're facing.
Are there any quick questions while we have them? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Witham.
I don't know if they're quick questions, they're at least questions that occur off the cuff to me. I've read some data, and maybe it's just isolated pockets, but some of the larger communities, Nashua and Manchester, have actually seen their numbers of drug-related calls for service decline, and the number of deaths actually decline. So I guess that's my first question. Are we, for all the wrong reasons, bucking that trend? Are we heading in the wrong direction? I mean, your numbers seem to suggest that we are.
I think the only way to respond to that is that's a loaded question,
Sorry.
because I don't know what products they're seeing. I don't know the availability of Narcan in their communities compared to our communities. I don't know how much of their product has xylazine in it, which is not necessarily responsive with Narcan as compared to our community. So I can't really provide.
Yeah, fair enough. It's probably not an apples to apples comparison by any stretch. Are there any other communities that utilize a police officer in such a targeted way here in New Hampshire, and what has been the result of that?
There are, and what actually brought me to this was 2 weeks ago, I attended the RX Summit, which was a conference in Nashville. As a result of that conference, I realized, look, these programs do work. There are at least, I want to say 9 other communities in New Hampshire running these programs right now. They are all on a verge of full-time, part-time, or part-time, full-time. Everybody's trying to get to full-time, but nobody's quite there yet. They are having success. They are building relationships, and they appear to be making a difference in their communities.
And I get maybe one final question, at least at the moment. This would be an existing, I'm guessing, patrol position that would have a heightened focus here, or would that be their sole focus, or how do you envision it working?
My vision would be depending on the needs of the agency. So this grant will fund that position. If that officer is out making these contacts, making these citizen encounters, going into the woods to check on these people and make sure that they have something to save them if they do overdose. If he's doing that for 40 hours a week, this will fund it 40 hours a week. However, if the agency has another need over here, we can shift. So my vision would be not necessarily full-time, but working towards full-time.
And I guess I lied. I have had another question. I know Dover does something similar, but I think they use a social worker in a similar capacity.
Correct.
So
what Dover's, in my opinion, what Dover's lacking is the enforcement piece. So if we've got this guy that is just constantly overdosing, and he's constantly in the same spot, and he's, trespassing for an extended amount of time, this guy can do something about it on that side too.
I think, just openly, I think I'm certainly want to learn more, and more than likely would support this because I love the forward-thinking nature of it. If I could ask the city manager to work with the police chief just to give me the list of the communities that are doing this right now here in the state, that would be great. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Other questions for Chief? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, I don't want to put you on the spot. I just was wondering if you might know where Somersworth is ranked in the whole opioid crisis. I mean, I know when I was in service in 2010 when it all kind of started, and then retired in 2015. I know it was rampant then. I know it still continues. I just didn't know if Somersworth fell in, like, we're 5th in the state with problems. Obviously, we're a small city, we're the smallest city, and some place like Manchester or Concord probably would be much higher. But I didn't know if there was like a statistic where we stand, do you know?
If there is, I don't know what that statistic is.
All I know is, would you agree that it's significant?
I mean, more than
One death.
more than one death is due to drugs is significant.
Yeah, and so I've heard the chief talk about this, and as a member of the public safety, actually it was an unanimous that we were all in favor of this, and I think it's a great idea. Thank you, chief.
Thank you. Other questions for the chief? We'll do Councilor Pepin and then Councilor Gibson.
I'd just like to point out, the chief gave us a map of the city of Somersworth, of basically where the responses are. So our committee has it, but if the city council would like to take a look at it afterwards, I can show you what he gave us. It's quite significant, so it shows a lot.
All councilors should have access to the materials in our drive for each of the committees, so if you'd like to look, it should be there. Councilor Gibson?
What would be the training of this officer that's going to be doing this? Or will it just be one officer?
It's going to be one officer. I have a lead on an officer that does have some training in this already. He's already a recovery coach. He's already been trained through this program. So he's already knows what this program is. I just can't tell you any more about that right now.
No, that would be my concern, is what the training level would be. If he has experience and you can land him, great.
He does indeed.
Other questions for Chief while we have him? Yes, City Manager.
Yeah, I just point out two things. One is just to reinforce that the Public Safety Committee did vote 3-0 to implement this program. And I thought, unless council feels differently, that it was within the chief's and my operational authority to go ahead and hire this person. We have at least 4 open slots, or is it 5?
I believe it's 5, sir.
5 open slots, so where it's a sworn officer, we wouldn't have to send to the standards and training. Unless you direct otherwise, we'll move forward with seeking their application to the city.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Brady Canzero.
Yes, I also sit on the Public Safety Committee, so I just want to thank you, Chief, for looking out for this program. I think it's something that our community absolutely needs. More resources for mental health or substance use is definitely something that we need. I also was very compelled by the fact that this is grant funded and is flexible. So it's covered completely by the grant if this is all that person does, but if we need that capacity on the city side to redirect the officer elsewhere, the city pays for those hours, but this grant covers all the fringe benefits and everything else. So it felt like a real win-win to me.
Right. Yes, we have a handful. I haven't heard from Councilor Barry yet, so we're going to have Councilor Barry, then Vincent, and with him.
Just kind of echoing similar council comments, but I just want to also say, our chief is coming to us with a request. I like that it's forward thinking, but I also believe that he knows what we need in our city, and I would like to support this because we don't get requests very often for new things to try, and I'm of that mindset. What we're doing isn't quite working, obviously, so let's try something new. And if our chief thinks this will work, I am in full support.
Thank you. Councilor Vincent?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to follow up on Councilor Gibson's comments about the training, I'm sure that if there's a training, and correct me if I'm wrong, that'll also be covered by the grant as far as part of that type of duty.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Witham?
What is the grant source? Is it federal grant or state?
I think it's state.
And don't dig for it right now. It'd be good to get at some point here.
New Hampshire DOJ.
Got it. That gives me a little more hope, right? Right now, federal grants are a little bit more tenuous, right? So that gives me hope. But the one comment I would have about the grant, and Councilor Parity Catanzaro kind of reminded me of this, is that oftentimes they're viewed as grant monies to start a program, but long-term not necessarily sustain it. I'm sure this has an application period every year or for a period of years, but we've seen many of an example here in the community where the grant money eventually runs out, and then we need to shoulder the burden, and I don't have problem shouldering this burden, right? It's an important thing, as other counselors have said, but just a cautionary note, if you will.
Thank you. Other questions for Chief while we have him? All right, thank you so much.
Just one more comment on that map that was referenced. If you do look at it, you will see that it's not something that's targeting a specific area of Somersworth. It's targeting all of Somersworth, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just,
And yes, Council Pepperin, you are still recognized for your public safety.
the only thing left I got is the 550, and thank you for letting the chief explain it, because I couldn't explain it as well as he has, so thank you.
Absolutely. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. We have Public Works and the Environment Committee, Councilor Witham.
No report.
Thank you. And lastly, Recreation Committee, Chairwoman Cameron. All right, thank you. Brings us to item 12, which is reports of special committees. Are there any reports of special committees this evening? All right, seeing none, I will turn it over to the city manager to deliver his manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of council, I offer the following comments that were provided to you in my written report, along with the meeting packet. Under new business, Resolution 5325 is in regards to authorizing the manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program regarding historic rehabilitation. And this was vetted by two of our council committees who voted to recommend acceptance of this state grant to the full body here. I provide you information that Director Babinski provided to me in the form of a memorandum that was attached to the report. And it also further explains not only the what work is going to be completed, I think it's actually in the resolution too, but also a notification from the Executive Director of LCHIP, the acronym for that grant program and organization that steers those grant funding to the various communities in the state. Next, Resolution 5425 is in regards to authorizing the manager to enter into agreement with Townsend Energy of Somersworth to install and supply fuel for an above-ground diesel tank at the Public Works facility, and also to engage Civil Works New England for site layout and assistance in regards to a permit application needed from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Again, it was vetted through Public Works and Finance Committee as the prior resolution was, and they voted to recommend to the full body that we move forward with this agreement. It's a multi-year agreement to continue to buy our diesel from Townsend Energy, and also for the installation of the diesel tank. They will be picking up the funding for that, as well as the software that's needed to track which particular department is fueling up, so we can allocate it budget-wise into the proper accounts. I also provided you the basic information from Civil Works that provides the layout of where it'll go and how the containment will be installed and whatever else needs to be done to get this rolling. There was a recommendation from Director Babinski in regards to currently they moved the Dover State filling site from our exit 9 interchange all the way down to Newington. So generally speaking, we watch the gas and diesel rates, and we utilize Irving. But at times, if you fueled up at Irving, you'll see sometimes they're out of gas, or perhaps if they lose power, we'll have this as some redundancy so we don't run out of fuel when we need to be plowing roads or making sure our fire apparatus can get to a scene. The next resolution, 5525, is in regards to the manager executing amendments to the agreements with Blackwater Road LLC, an affiliate of Amoresco of Framingham, Massachusetts, to develop the solar project according to the appropriate RSA 362A on the closed Somersworth sanitary landfill site on Blackwater Road. We did discuss this with the Finance Committee at their last meeting, and the amendments were reviewed and discussed on conference calls between Amoresco and the city's team, which included Director Smith, our Superfund legal counsel, and myself. And I also attached an explanation in the packet that was provided by the project manager, Ryan Fahey, in regards to the solar array construction. I did also provide some red lines, and we'll be moving forward with one final discussion tomorrow in regards to potentially fine-tuning one particular clause. Informational items, I authorized our police chief to move forward with 2 grant applications. One is for federal funding in the amount of $128,239 to replace all our department portable radios. And he received notice from one of our congressional delegations that funding might become available or will become available, and we're responding to that new information. The other one was to apply for $8,500 to receive funding from New Hampshire regarding targeted motor vehicle enforcement funding. And I provided you the chief's memorandums in regards to these particular grants. That concludes my report. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
Point of order, Your Honor.
Yes.
I just have one quick question for the city manager, if I can. And I can't remember during the Public Works where we talked about the fueling. Was that just diesel, or was that combination fuel and diesel? I can't remember.
I think it's just diesel. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, brings us to item 13 on our agenda, which is nominations, appointments, and elections. Under nominations, appointments, and elections, in accordance with Council Rule 17 appointments, the following are up for a confirmation vote this evening. We have Mark Richardson for reappointment as Commissioner to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission with a term to expire May 31st, 2029. What are the wishes of the council?
Your Honor, I move that we affirm the nominee.
All right, Councilor Witham moves to reappoint Mark Richardson, seconded by Councilor Pepin. A motion for the council is to accept Mark Richardson for reappointment as Commissioner to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Witham.
I think most councilors know Mark sits on the planning board, and I'm not sure there's ever been a meeting where he hasn't reported out on his attendance and activity with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. He's an active and engaged member, so glad to support him in this role.
Okay, thank you. Other discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're in favor of the nominee, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All in favor.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Nominee is accepted. Also, under nominations and appointments and elections in accordance with Council Rule 17 appointments, the following are being introduced for nomination this evening. We have Douglas Breyer for reappointment as a member of the Conservation Commission with a term to expire in 3 years, and Richard Brooks for appointment as a Ward 1 selectman with a term to expire in November 2025, following ratification of the 2025
Your Honor.
municipal election results. Yes.
I'd like to
Councilor Witham.
suspend rules and act on both nominees this evening.
Councilor Witham wishes to suspend
Second
rules
that.
and vote on the slate of nominees, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Motion for the council is on the appointment of both Douglas, or excuse me, the suspension of rules, not the appointment yet, of, to be able to vote on the nominees. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Goodwin.
Can I ask Councilor Witham why?
We have an election tomorrow, and I'm just thinking that that might be important for tomorrow.
The Conservation Commission?
No, I was just lumping them together, just cleaning it up. We could do one if that,
I'm not going to vote in favor of that motion, but that's just me.
Okay, other discussion? All right, Councilor Brady Canzero.
I guess I just have a question how this reads. Richard Brooks for appointment as Ward 1 Selectman with a term to expire November 2025, following ratification of the 2020. Okay, so the term expires following ratification.
Yeah, I believe it's because it's a term he would have to put his name down for to run for in the municipal elections.
Right,
So
okay.
he will fill that until that
I was
time.
confused by the wording, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Other discussion? Okay. If you are in favor of the motion to suspend rules, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Nominees are now moved forward. So I'll be looking for a motion on both nominees. What are the wishes of the council?
I'll make a motion that we affirm the appointment of Doug Breyer to the Conservation Commission.
All right, we have a motion to affirm
I'll
Doug
second that.
Breyer to the Conservation Commission, seconded by Councilor Vincent. And the motion before us is to affirm Douglas Breyer for his reappointment as a member of the Conservation Commission. Discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion, if you're in favor of the nominee, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Nominee is accepted. Yes.
I'll make a
Councilman.
motion.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to move Richard Brooks for the appointment of Ward 1 Selectman.
All right, Councilor Vincent moves to appoint Richard Brooks to the Ward 1 Selectman's position. Second by Councilor Pepin. Again, the motion before us is to appoint Richard Brooks as Ward 1 Selectman. Discussion. All right, seeing no discussion, if you're in favor of the appointee, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, both appointees have been accepted. That will bring us to item 14. We have items laid on the table. We do have one item laid on the table, which is ordinance 19-25, which is to amend chapter 19, zoning ordinance section 19.24, accessory dwelling units, and section 25 definitions, section ZD, dwelling units accessory. It's my understanding that city staff is still working on coming up with the requested language for the amendment for this ordinance. Therefore, it may not be ready to remove from the table. Certainly, you are the council and can make said motion, but I just wanted to give you that clarity before we move on. Okay, moving on. Brings us to item 15, which is unfinished business. First up, under ordinances, the chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on ordinance 22-25, supplemental appropriation for the reconstruction of a culvert on Rocky Hill Road, which, if approved, would appropriate $112,000 from unassigned fund balance to the capital outlay budget. City Clerk.
Ordinance number 2225, supplemental appropriation for the reconstruction of a culvert on Rocky Hill Road.
All right, ordinance 22-25, having been read a first and now second time, is open to further amendments. All right, seeing no amendments being offered, I'll look for a motion on ordinance 22-25. Councilor Vincent.
I'll make a motion on ordinance 22-25 to move that forward
All
with
right,
the culvert
Councilor
reconstruction.
Vincent moves for the adoption of ordinance 22-25, seconded by Councilor Gibson. Motion before the council is on the adoption of ordinance 22-25. Discussion. All right, seeing none. If you're in favor of the adoption of ordinance 22-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin. Yes. Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 22-25 has been adopted. That brings us now to item 16 on our agenda, which is new business. We have one ordinance under new business. The chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on ordinance 23-25, which is a supplemental appropriation to provide the grant match for a New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program Historic Rehabilitation Grant for repairs at the Ferber, oh my God, I can't talk tonight, Ferber Memorial Chapel. City Clerk.
Ordinance number 2325, supplemental appropriation to provide the grant match for a New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program Historic Rehabilitation Grant for repairs to the Ferber Memorial Chapel, May 5th, 2025. The City of Somersworth ordains that pursuant to Section 7.7A of the City Charter, the annual budget for the City of Somersworth for fiscal year 2024-2025 is amended as follows. Appropriate $62,500 from the cable fund to the capital outlay budget as follows. Current budget, $62,390. Amendment, $62,500. Revised budget, $125,790. Approved as to funding, Scott A. Smith, Director of Finance and Administration. Recorded by Kristen LePan, City Clerk. Background, this ordinance appropriates the funding for the city's share of a grant award from the New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program for a historic rehabilitation grant to make repairs to the Ferber Memorial Chapel. This ordinance requires a public hearing and requires a 2/3 majority vote of the City Council after the public hearing, subject to Section 7.4.1 and Section 7.7A of the City Charter. Sponsored by Councilors Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved City Attorney.
Thank you. Ordinance 23-25, having read a first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting, at which time we will have a public hearing. Brings us to our resolutions under new business. First up, the chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 53-25, which is to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program Historic Rehabilitation Grant. City Clerk.
Resolution number 5325, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program Historic Rehabilitation Grant. May 5th, 2025. Whereas the city submitted a grant application with the New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program for a historic rehabilitation grant to make repairs to the Ferber Memorial Chapel. And whereas the repairs to the chapel include stabilizing the north wall, repointing the entire exterior, rehabilitation of the entrance doors and framing, and interior wall painting. And whereas the city has been notified of a grant award in the amount of $62,500, which represents 50% of the estimated cost of the project, requiring the city to provide a local match in the amount of $62,500. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program for a historic rehabilitation grant in the amount of $62,500, and to take any and all other such actions relative to this grant's execution determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 53-25, having been read a first time, will remain in first reading until our next meeting. The chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 54-25, which is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Townsend Energy of Somersworth, New Hampshire, to install and supply fuel for an above-ground diesel tank at the Public Works facility, and enter into a contract with Civil Works New England for site layout and NHDES permit applications. City clerk.
Resolution number 5425, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Townsend Energy of Somersworth, New Hampshire, to install and supply fuel for an above-ground diesel tank at the Public Works facility, and enter into a contract with Civil Works New England for site layout and NHDES permit application. May 5th, 2025. Whereas Townsend Energy proposes to provide the city of Somersworth with a 2,000-gallon above-ground diesel tank, dispensing equipment, and supply fuel for the city's diesel fleet, including equipment and apparatus from Public Works and the Fire Department at the city's Public Work facility. And whereas the city agrees to purchase diesel fuel from Townsend Energy, and Townsend Energy will own and maintain the storage tank and provide the city with a user tracking system to account for diesel fuel by units. And whereas the city is required to submit an above-ground storage tank system permit with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, Oil Remediation and Compliance Bureau due to the size of the tank, that includes a site plan, existing conditions survey, and a spill prevention control and countermeasure plan. And whereas city staff recommend hiring Civil Works New England to prepare the required site plan, survey, and permit application as required by New Hampshire DES for a cost not to exceed $15,500. And whereas the Public Works and Environment Committee and the Finance Committee has reviewed the proposal from Townsend Energy and from Civil Works New England with city staff and supports the recommendation to contract with Townsend Energy and Civil Works New England. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a contract with Townsend Energy to install and maintain a 2,000-gallon above-ground diesel tank at the Public Works facility, and to enter into a contract with Civil Works New England to complete the required permit application with New Hampshire DES for this work, and to take any action relative to these contracts determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Kenneth S. Vincent, Martin Pepin, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 54-25, having been read a first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. The chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 55-25, which is to authorize the city manager to execute amendments to the agreement with Blackwater Road Solar LLC, an affiliate of Amoresco Inc. of Framingham, Mass., to develop a solar project pursuant to RSA 362-A on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road. City clerk.
Resolution number 5525, to authorize the city manager to execute amendments to the agreements with Blackwater Road Solar LLC, an affiliate of Amoresco Inc. of Framingham, Massachusetts, to develop a solar project pursuant to RSA 362-A on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road. May 5th, 2025. Whereas the City Council adopted Resolution 2722 on March 21st, 2022, authorizing the city manager to negotiate agreements subject to the approval of the city council with Amoresco, Inc. of Framingham, Massachusetts, to develop a solar project on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road. And whereas the city manager negotiated agreements with Amoresco, Inc. for the design, installation, maintenance, and decommissioning of a community solar project pursuant to the New Hampshire Group Net Metering Statute, RSA 362-A, to be located on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road. And whereas the agreements consist of a purchase power agreement, a ground lease, and a payment in lieu of taxes agreement by and between the City of Somersworth and Blackwater Road Solar LLC. And whereas the purchase power agreement and a ground lease, each by and between the City of Somersworth and Blackwater Road LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Amoresco, Inc., were signed on June 26, 2023. And whereas the development and construction of the solar facility was delayed due to certain land restrictions on the landfill site related to the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant with the State of New Hampshire Division of Parks and Recreation, and therefore the City of Somersworth and Blackwater Road Solar LLC desire to amend the ground lease to extend Blackwater Road Solar LLC development period. And whereas Blackwater Road Solar LLC has proposed certain amendments to the PPA to reduce the allocations of power to the City of Somersworth to better align with the city's electrical usage and to allow for a direct payment from the utility in lieu of an allocation of bill credits. And whereas the city manager negotiated amendments to the ground lease and PPA to address the proposed changes noted above. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to execute the amendments to the ground lease and PPA with Blackwater Road Solar LLC relating to the development of a solar project pursuant to RSA 362-A on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road, and take any and all other such actions relative to this project determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Martin Pepin, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Your Honor,
Yes.
if you could enter me as a sponsor without objection.
Great, thank you. Resolution 55-25, having read it first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. That brings us to items under other. Under other this evening, we have a vote to approve a 3-year employment agreement with our new city manager. What are the wishes of the council? Councilor Witham.
Move that we ratify the agreement.
Councilor Witham moves that we ratify the agreement, seconded by Councilor Parity Catanzaro. Motion for the council is on the approval of the employment agreement for our new city manager. Discussion. Councilor Witham.
Thank you. I don't believe this is a process that any of us on council had ever been through before, as Manager Belmore has been with us for 20-some-odd years. I was delighted that we had a very strong pool of applicants. I think as we all know, and members of the community might know, we employed MRI, Municipal Resources Inc., to do the initial vetting of the applicant pool, which was described by their representatives as particularly strong. They narrowed down the candidate pool to 5, which the city council interviewed. We collectively narrowed that down to 3, and then collectively, I guess I'll use the word acquiesced around the candidate that we're making the offer to. We've met with the candidate to negotiate the contract that we believe is fair to all parties involved, which is what brings us here this evening. I think because of the strong applicant pool, we have positioned Somersworth very well for the next many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? All right. Seeing no more discussion. If you are in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying yes. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Our applicant is accepted. Congratulations, everybody. All right. That brings us to item 7.
Your Honor, just a question of clarity. Now
Sure.
that we've ratified that contract, does it now become public so that members of the public can see that.
Yes, I think we will unseal without objection the minutes from our last meeting. That will then allow those to be publicly viewed. So yes, the contract will now be public as well. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Councilor Gibson, question as well?
I understand publicizing the contract, but unsealing the minutes?
I feel like it typically is tradition. If with objection, we don't have to do it. It's just typical that since the contract itself has been now made public, the discussion surrounding the contract is also worth to be made publicly available. There's nothing in those minutes that would otherwise be protected because it's in the contract. The reason that we did seal them was because it was technically personnel. The individual, I guess I can say his name now, David Moore, who was applying, may not have wanted his name out there because of his current employer or who knows what. And so we seal them for those specific reasons because it's personnel related. But now that the contract is public, it no longer needs to be sealed.
Well, the only reason I question it is normally whenever this personnel matter is involved, the minutes of the discussion of the council are not made public.
I think those would be personnel issues that don't become public. This was a specific issue that was a contract that then does become public. So the minutes themselves could also become public. Hope that's clear. Further objection? Okay, I think we will unseal them. Thank you. All right. That will bring us to item 17, which is comments by visitors. Again, Somersworth City Council and Mayor's Office welcome all visitors and encourage you to voice your opinions and views at council meetings. In accordance with Council Rules 7-C, a time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the council wishes to suspend the rules. Speakers shall not enter into a debate with any person, the mayor, council members, city manager, or department heads. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening? Yes, thank you. Again, if you wouldn't mind saying your name and ward in which you live.
Richard Brooks, Ward 1. Thank you for the appointment to Selectman. Caught me off guard last week, but obviously it was just someone else that's already been involved. And, you know, it's just funny because this is going to be the first time I've worked in my own ward. I'm glad to see that we're not shorthanded, apparently. So now I've got to work for my position instead of just volunteer, but thank you.
Thank you for being willing to do it. Other comments by visitors this evening?
Negative.
Seeing none, we'll move on to closing comments by councilors. Councilor Witham, you are up first.
No comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Goodwin?
No comment.
All right, Councilor Cameron?
I do have a comment. I would just like to thank everybody that came out on the 25th for the all-city cleanup in the pouring rain. Yes. We were drenched, yes. Sure. And we collected about 50 bags from all the wards. And I would like to do a special thank you to Laura Berry and her husband. We had a little incident on Sunday, and I had rounded some people up to go take care of it, and her and her husband took care of it for me, so thank you for that. My next one will be May 17th, and it does say Willen Pond. I am going to be changing that to Willen Drive and Commercial Drive. So we're going to be headed that way yet again. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Berry?
I want to mimic, thanks for everybody who came out. It was a very soggy day. It did not make it that much fun, but everybody I worked with still had a smile on their face at the end of the day, especially once they saw all their bags all together in a big pile. And just seeing how clean our area specifically got. One other thing from our comments by visitors at the beginning of the night, I think this is probably on our radar already, but I did like the thought of a parking commission because I know we're talking about parking downtown. We just did a study. I know pay to park has come up a few times, so I think that would be something that would be beneficial to us to also consider around that. Otherwise, I don't have anything else.
All right, thank you. Councilor Pepin?
I have nothing this evening.
All right, Councilor Vincent?
Thank you. On a real quick thing, I just want to say, Nancy, that I do recall that you said that one of the wards was going to win something, and I collected 375 bags of trash.
In Ward 1.
In Ward 2. Matter of fact, I just stopped yesterday. I started last Saturday and just finished yesterday morning. No, that's all a bunch of bull. But I just want to say this, that I was there and it was wet. But may I make a suggestion? you know, you pick up trash, and I did it all the way down Blackwater Road. And as I drove over to my shop, Route 108 from Blackwater Road to my shop, especially across in the medical, what a bunch of trash right there. Maybe we can put that on the list, or maybe tomorrow, if I'm ambitious, I can go over there and pick it up. I still have your tools and equipment, but I thought that cleaning up the city was nice, and kudos to you. Thank you. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Councilor Gibson.
Yeah. Just a couple of quick things. First off, I know that it'll be coming up at the next meeting, but I will not be voting in favor of the funding source for the Ferber rehabilitation. I have no problem with the grant, but I consider it an inappropriate use of cable fund money. We seem to keep stretching that fund out to cover more and more stuff. It was specifically designed to ensure that communications needs of the city be met by that funding. And somehow, I don't think working on a building comes under communications. And the other thing is, please, somebody get rid of the pollen and the rain. It's killing me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Parity Canzera.
I'll try to get right on that. I've been trying, it's not been working. A couple of things. Number one, I was very excited and proud to see Don Barrios post that Toys in the Attic is celebrating 25 years in business. So that's just really exciting, and congrats to that local business. Tomorrow is a primary election. So from 7 to 7 at your regular polling location, you can go and participate in that. I highly encourage everyone to get out and vote tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Brings us to item 19, which is future agenda items. Are there any agenda items requested for future meetings? No. Brings us to 20, non-public. We have none. Last is adjournment. Councilor Vincent moves the city council stand in adjournment until our next regularly scheduled meeting, seconded by Councilor Barry. Question for the council is adjournment. If you're in favor, you'll say by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll say by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Council is in adjourn.